Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Slamfire. Be sure to check us out at slamfiremedia.com where we have links to all our videos, which will be on BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble. And then you can follow us on Gab at Slamfire Media. Pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy. So let's get into it. I don't want these to be going too long. There's a lot going on. I'm sure there's a lot of people busy and things like that. I don't want to have this run on too crazy like last episode when it was just me by myself. So again, it'd just be Texas Ocelot coming to you guys by himself. The Slanted Scholar's been working, been kind of busy, so hopefully next time he can join in and we can get a good discussion going on. But I don't think there's really much to discuss. I think everyone's pretty much on the same page of what's going on. All of us should kind of be aware that there's some pretty heavy duty stuff going on in Ukraine with Russia, and just it's kind of a mess. It's kind of a mess in the sense that you have some people who want everyone to go in, like they some people want to go in and support, like directly support, and we're getting all these different sorts of reports and articles and all this different information coming from all these separate sources. And it's a very interesting time right now to be talking about this. I really didn't want to talk about this too much, but I thought that it would be interesting to kind of hit this from a perspective of we don't really know all the facts in an era where information is so rampant and readily available. It's so strange. So the key point that I want to talk to you guys about, I kind of want to put this on a script and have a little layout so that there's a little bit of organization so that you guys know where we're going with this. Okay, so basically there's multiple reports coming in from various sources, right? We have all these different types of sources, and it's easy to get caught up with all the info and get into a frenzy about all the what ifs. I even heard about Tim Pool talking about nuclear war, and even my wife has been kind of freaking out about there being nuclear war, and she's saying, oh, I had a dream and all this other like crazy stuff, and it just works people up into a frenzy. And you have one group saying one thing and another group saying another thing. So Russia is saying one thing and Ukraine is kind of saying another thing, and then we have all these other people kind of interpreting it and kind of trying to evaluate it through their filter, and it just makes kind of a big mess, right? But the one thing that we do have are videos, right? Videos and pictures, it's kind of hard to lie on those, right? You really, I mean, I know there's like editing and stuff like that for photos and things like that, but when you have actual video and you have audio and, it paints a clearer picture rather than someone just saying something, that really helps out a lot. So what I think is the most logical thing that we can do is looking at this from the outside and understand that we're not there, right? We need to rely on primary sources of info at this point because there's a lot of people out there who have agendas, right? There's someone is trying to get their way in one form or another. So the way that we can protect ourselves with that so that we can make logical decisions, rational decisions, not based off someone else's motives, but our own logical responses, right? So the politicians are the ones that are going to war. This is the reality. This is a fact. Politicians are the ones that go to war, but they rarely suffer the consequences, right? You have Putin, who obviously is declaring war on Ukraine, and Putin doesn't have to suffer any of this, right? He sends his soldiers to do it, and they have to and they fight, and they're the ones that suffer the consequences, right? Regular everyday people who just want to get on with their lives are the ones that have to fight these wars, or even worse, they have to send their children to fight these wars, right? With that being said, we need to use this as an example of why it's important that we maintain our freedoms, our values that we have here on the West, right? Keeping our government small, keeping our government in check so that it's not strong enough to wage useless wars. Now, don't get me wrong, there are wars that need to be fought, right? Like, I don't know, it's one of those things where it's easy to talk and it's easy to say like, oh, it's just don't fight. But we need to understand, and I think everyone understands, anyone who has a brain in their head and thinks logically, they understand that there's evil out there, right? There's evil people who want to enact evil things on just regular other people, right? For whatever reason. That's just how humanity is. So when I say useless wars, it's just going to war over money, going to war over, material things like to try to prove a point. What does that gain? Doesn't really gain anything, right? To me, that's kind of useless. Now, if someone is going to war in defense of someone attacking them, that's completely different. So I'm thinking of like 9/11. Now, if the United States did something to provoke an attack, that's a different story, right? Like now we're going into the realms of the conspiracy. So I'm just saying the idea of it. So the idea that we had people hijack planes and crash them into civilian towers and civilian occupied areas of the country, and they did this as a form of terror. That kind of forces someone's hand, right? There's going to be a response to that, right? And that's not necessarily useless. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me very wrong. Like we should have just went into Afghanistan or Iraq, wherever we needed to go to find out whoever was responsible for this. We should have went in, dealt with it, and came back out, right? That whole thing was a big mess. But what I'm trying to get at, the point is the response to it was a logical response, right? So, like what I'm thinking is like Nazi Germany, World War II, you had Hitler that just wanted to control everything. Like, what was the point of that? Like, why couldn't he have just gained power where he was at and just built on his strength? And if his policies and his leadership was so great, then he wouldn't have had to go to war, right? And then look what happened. It was I don't know. That's a hard one to say. If it was a useless war, I mean, what did it accomplish? I don't know. It just kind of set boundaries. It kind of set alliances in certain places. It was a useless. He thought it was important for him to do what he did because he was doing it for the betterment of his country, right? But you're going to have a logical response to that, right? You're going to have people from different countries that are going to defend themselves, right? That's a logical response. But the point being that he went into it needlessly, right? If, like I said, if his leadership is so great, if it was so popular, why did he have to use force in order to, you know, force people into his ideology, right? That's just straight up evil, and it just needs to be defended against, right? That's going to be the obvious response to something that's evil. So with this idea, I want to move on to a couple of points. So there's been some Security Council meetings, and they've had representatives from all these different countries, and they've had Russia, Ukraine, obviously. The United States has been there, France has been there, all these different countries have been there in these Security Council meetings, and they're kind of just laying out their positions, and they're trying to come out with a diplomatic resolution type of thing, and it's just not happening. It's just not happening. I just finished watching one that it was live. I don't know if it was happening in real time, if it was like pre-recorded, but it was either from today or yesterday, but I'm pretty sure it was from today because they were mentioning attacks that had happened last night. So it's fairly recent. Okay, so in these Security Council meetings, you have Russia, and they're basically laying out their position. They're saying that they're doing this in order to free the people of Ukraine from oppressive leaders and radical nationalists. That's kind of like their position, and that basically the world is out against is against them. That all these other nations are using propaganda and misinformation to spin them as if they're an evil dictatorship and that they're doing this because their own personal vendetta against Ukraine or whatever malicious way they want to spin it, right? So you have Russia saying one thing, and you have Ukraine obviously saying another thing. So Russia was saying that, oh, we have people that we're not doing the things that you're saying that we're doing. So then Ukraine comes back and says, well, you said that you weren't going to be attacking civilians. You were going to leave the civilian population alone. But then there's video and there's evidence of missiles hitting downtown like apartment complexes. So just to show you that I'm not just talking out my butt, so you guys can kind of see this for yourself, let's get a little video action here. So it's not too long, there's no violence or anything, but you can obviously see there's something missing from they're not remodeling this building, right? Obviously something hit this building right here that caused a big hole, so we can kind of see it. I don't want to blow y'all's ears out. So You obviously had some sort of rocket, some sort of projectile come and hit the side of the building, and this is the after effect. So I was looking into this a little bit. That's pretty much the video. They just show everything there. I was looking into this video a little bit, and there were some reports, and there were some things that it was an actual complex that people were living in. Luckily, no one died, but there were several injuries. I know there was a man who had mentioned that it was one of his apartments were one of those that got hit. Yeah, let's just so you can see the picture. One of his apartments was one of these that 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 suffered some serious damage, and I couldn't find the video of it. I had saw it somewhere else and I couldn't find it, just so you can see it. And the guy was basically on the phone and explaining what had happened. I guess he was talking to some relatives or whatever, and he said that the explosion, the destruction, like it just kind of took out the living room of the apartment that they were in. But him and his family were luckily they were in the kitchen, so they didn't really suffer any losses. But he had mentioned that his daughter or his son, I think he had two children, and both of them, like, their legs were broken or something like that. They had sustained injuries to their legs. I don't know if there was like a translation issue, because he was obviously speaking a different language and they were translating it. But there are civilians obviously getting caught in the crossfire, or whatever you want to call this. So the simple idea that you have, not the simple idea, but the simple fact that you have the Russian representative of this Security Council meeting saying that, oh, we're not targeting civilians, that's obviously, that whether you're targeting or not targeting doesn't change the fact that they are being affected, right? It's something that that you should be acknowledging, but the fact that you're not acknowledging it makes it seem like you can't be trusted with what you're saying, right? So how can we trust the things that you're saying if we can see it with our own eyes and we can hear it with our ears, right? We can observe all of this and tell that what you're saying is just simply not fact, right? Your facts are wrong. So they're having these meetings and they're talking about all these different situations, and they're just kind of going back and forth. So what do we know? What do we know for a fact that we can make logical conclusions about, right? Regular people are taking up arms and they're defending their homes from what they see are invaders, right? That's kind of like a logical response to when someone comes into into your property, or whatever you want to call it, and they are acting in a threatening manner. You're going to defend yourself, right? No one can deny that when someone attacks, the logical response is to, like, fight back, right? That's a logical response. That's a natural thing that a human being is going to do. If someone attacks you, you're going to fight back in one form or another, right? If someone verbally attacks you, you're going to want to say something back, right? If someone physically attacks you, you're going to defend yourself, or you're going to run away, right? There's going to be some sort of response. And any response is kind of a logical response, right? It doesn't matter what it is. You can't characterize it as good or bad. It's just a response, right? It's a natural thing it's that fight or flight response type of thing, right? It's programmed into it's hardwired into our genetics that's just what we do, right? We have some sort of response. But with them coming out and saying all of these different things, and we're getting all these different reports, it's so funny to me. It's almost like a joke that we have to get a lot of our information from, like, meme pages. So I have a meme page that me and my wife use constantly. We use it a lot. It's called iFunny. I'm sure you guys know about it. So we actually are finding out a lot of news from this meme page. So I'm going to show you that this is how we're getting primary sources of information. And I think it's interesting, because we have all these news networks and all these things that are just, throwing out information, and how can you it's kind of hard to trust it, right? So you kind of got to take everything in and think, what is the logical conclusion to all of this information that's coming in. So these photos and these pictures, they do have merit, right? So this was from last night, I believe. So they destroyed 2 Russian tanks with Molotov cocktails. There's also been reports that they're playing on radios and on I don't know if it's on the televisions, but they're publicly broadcasting in Ukraine instructions for the citizens on how to create Molotov cocktails, so that they have a way to fight back. And we've all seen the memes of them passing out weapons and everything like that to everybody who's willing to fight. So that's actually going on, right? We can see that for ourselves. So these are all like meme pages. So here are the actual Molotov cocktails. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but we have all these Molotov cocktails. People are using whatever they can to, fight for themselves. And we have all these stories coming in about this Snake Island, I believe it was called. Is there a word on? I forgot what it's called, but it's called Snake. I want to say it's called Snake Island, and these people were manning a post. I want to say it was 13 Ukrainian soldiers uh, that were manning this post, and they were being threatened by a Russian battleship, and they told them to basically surrender, and they didn't. Right? They held their ground, and it's being reported that they were all killed in action. So 13 men of the Ukraine side fought literally to the bitter end. And this is how we're getting this information. So you have like these actual videos of these soldiers and putting out messages and things like that and posting them on TikTok and all these meme pages. And it's just so funny that this is what we've come to. That this is our primary source of information. And it's interesting because we're getting all of these legit forms of propaganda. And it's very, I don't know, it's kind of surreal because this is something that was done in times of like real war, and this kind of just solidifies that this is actually going on. This is something it validates the stories, right? So all we can do is know that there is actual conflict going on, and it's not just whatever. People are doing whatever they can in order to tip the scales in the favor that they decide it should be tipped, right? So they even have stories about this old lady going up to some Russian soldiers who are walking down the street and telling them to put sunflowers in their pockets so that when they die, at least sunflowers grow, right, from their death. At least something comes out of their death. So you got crazy things like that happening. So what does this mean? What does this mean? We have a war, we have a conflict going on, and we have kind of we're stuck in like a little conundrum where it's like, do we go and render aid? Do we give these people, direct aid in fighting this war, right? So like you have regular citizens, regular people being affected by this, and it's a very difficult decision to say like, yeah, we should go in and we should send troops in to help fight back. So then we're basically getting into a direct conflict with Russia. Is that something we should be doing? So just to give you an example here, we have more videos of here. This is on BitChute. Supposedly, I'll play this in the background. I don't want the audio too loud. So basically, you had these guys broken down on the side of the road, and you had these soldiers, and there's, you have the translation here on the bottom, basically telling them like, oh, we can take you back to Russia or whatever, and they're having a little friendly exchange.
И я вот всю колонну пообспрашивал, таких как вы, никто не в курсе вообще, кто куда едет.
So this is actually in Ukraine. So you have, there is there is interaction going on between Russia and Ukraine. It's not just a big giant propaganda type of thing that Russia is claiming it is, right? That, oh, everyone's out to get us, and we're just doing this for the betterment of the Ukrainian people, right? Of the Ukrainians. And what I found interesting was, where was it? There was a tweet that I saw right here. I want to show you guys, and this kind of exemplifies what's going on. And this is like a great quote. Where is it? Right here. So if Russia stops fighting, there's no more war. Right? That makes sense, right? Because Russia is pretty much the aggressor in this. If Russia starts fighting, there's no more war. If Ukraine stops fighting, there's no more Ukraine. Right? There will be no Ukraine. So this just kind of exemplifies the overall picture of what we have here. This kind of paints a small portrait of what is actually going on here that we can kind of, an idea that we can logically grasp onto, that everyone can kind of agree on, is that Russia is attacking Ukraine. This is happening. This is happening. Whether it should be or shouldn't be, that's something else, right? That's something that we don't know all the facts, we don't know the details of how it's happening. We have little snapshots of here and there of these things, but we can't say for certain, right? Because we're not in control of the information that's being provided to us. Just information is being given to us, and we kind of have to filter it through our our natural filter. But anyways, so going back to what we were talking about on that last picture that I showed you that we would talk about in a minute. So I saw this picture right here, and I wasn't sure about it. So this was Jack Posobiec, and he posted a tweet, or he tweeted a tweet, right? Or he was on Twitter or whatever, and he posted a tweet, or he tweeted it, whatever the terminology is. I don't know what it is. But basically, there was a question, and it said, "Will sanctions deter Putin?" And Kamala Harris responded with, "Within the context then of the fact that that window is still opening, although it is absolutely narrowing, but within the context of a diplomatic path still being open." Actual quote. It's so confusing. So I actually looked it up. And it's actually right here. So it was, thought I had saved it. Sanctions in place right now. Right here. It's right here. So here's the question. But if Putin has made up his mind, do you feel that this threat has been looming? Do you feel that this threat has been looming is really going to deter him? So the question is in reference to the sanctions. So right here, because they asked him about the sanctions, why not put those sanctions in place now? Okay, what I want to see is the date of this. When is the date? February 20th. So this was about a week ago. Okay, so they were saying, like, why not put the sanctions in then a week ago? Okay, that's what this question is in reference to right here. So the purpose of the sanctions has always been as a deterrence. Okay, so that's the context of this question. So do you feel that this threat that has been looming is really going to deter him? So the threat that they're talking about is the sanctions. That's the threat that the U.S. has been giving Putin, right? That's how this question is in reference. So this is how she answers. Absolute, we strongly believe and remember also that the sanctions are not a product, not only of our perspective as the United States, but as a shared perspective among our allies. And the allied relationship is such that we have agreed that the deterrence effect of these sanctions is still a meaningful one, especially because, remember also, we still sincerely hope that there is a diplomatic path out of this moment. And then she continues, and within the context then of the fact that that window is still opening, although it is absolutely narrowing, but within the context of a diplomatic path still being open, the deterrent effect we believe has merit. So that is just a word salad of what the F, right? Like, what is going on here? What is she talking about, right? You really have to listen. You really have to think and pay attention to what she's saying to decipher what she's trying to get across, what message she's trying to say. So what I think she's trying to say, that the window is still opening, although open, that the window is still open to put out the sanction, right? Because this was a week ago before the invasion, before the Russian invasion started, right? So that the window is still open for the deterrent, although it is absolutely narrowing, meaning that the window is open so that we don't have to, right? The threat is there so that we don't have to give the sanctions. We don't have to put in place sanctions, right? That window's narrowing, so it's almost like hey, you're getting really close. You better not do what you're gonna do, or else we're gonna put sanctions on you, right? So that they're kind of laying in that threat there, absolutely narrowing. but within the context of a diplomatic path still being open. So it's saying like, hey, we're going to we're threatening you with sanctions, but that doesn't mean you can't get out of this, right? Let's talk about it. We can talk about it, and nothing has to happen, right? Within the context of a diplomatic path. The deterrent effect, we believe, has merit. So it's saying like it's almost like she's saying that we're giving you this threat of a sanction, followed by like that's plan B, but we really want a diplomatic solution. That's what I think she's trying to say here. But it's just it's a mess. It's a mess. These people have no idea what's going on. I don't have, maybe they do. Again, I'm just, this is Slamfire, guys. I talk out of my ass sometimes. I may be completely wrong. I get hyperbolic sometimes. So they may have absolutely a clear picture of what's going on, right? That like United States intelligence is on this. They should be. I would like to think that they're on this, right? They know everything that every move that everyone is making. They should have eyes on this. They got satellites and everything that they know what's going on, right? So I want to believe that they know what's going on. But the way that they talk does not give me confidence that they understand the full scale of the situation, right? So that brings me to my third point. Do we honestly want this current administration fighting this war? Look at what happened in Afghanistan. Look at what's happening in the southern border. Look how it's being handled. It's perfectly fine and logical to root for who you think is defending, right? I kind of understand that because it's almost like Ukraine is like the underdog, right? They're fighting against this big, massive force, the Russian army, and they're kind of they're under the gun, and they're trying to think of like those classic underdog words or whatever. They're the man. I'm thinking of the Rudy speech or something. I forgot. Anyway, they're the underdog, right? It's natural. It's a natural response for people to root for the underdog, right? But I strongly believe though that we don't belong in this war, right? We need to respect the lack of actual knowledge as to why this is happening and let these foreign nations sort out their own issues. This is not our war, right? We have absolutely no business in there. We need to fix our problems at home, and I think we need to play defense because this administration does not have the capacity to handle this. They couldn't handle they can't handle the southern border. They can't even handle their own problems here at home. They couldn't handle Afghanistan. Leaving Afghanistan, they just couldn't leave in a proper way. We left all of this equipment and all of this and all of these resources there for the Taliban and everything. Like all those resources, if you wanted to just give them away, you could have taken them in there. You could have given them to Ukraine right now, right? Like all of that money, all of those resources, just gone, just wasted. It's ridiculous, and that's under our current administration. You can go and blame Trump for all of whatever you want to blame Trump for, but that doesn't change the fact that all of this, Afghanistan, the southern border, all of the issues going on with the fentanyl and the high crime rates and all these other cities and all of these mandates and everything that have just turned people's lives upside down. All of this has been happening under Biden's administration. That is an absolute fact that no one can deny. They can deny, well, you know what, they can deny it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's true, right? They can hop around it and try to blame Trump and do all this and blame whoever they want to blame, not just blame Trump, right? Blame whoever they want to blame in order to deflect, but it doesn't change the fact that this is actually happening right now under Biden's administration, and this dude is going off to Delaware or eating ice cream and touching little kids or whatever the hell he does on the weekend, right? That doesn't change the fact that this administration is completely incompetent, and we don't want them there anyway. So I kind of want to leave it on there. I don't want to go too much into this because, again, we're getting so much information that we're not sure if it's reliable or not. We really just have to wait to see what's going to happen. And I don't want to be that person that's going to tell you like, oh, you need to start thinking about this, start doing this and start doing that in preparation just in case, because we don't really know what's going on. We need to think about this logically because that's how the government wants us to react. They want us to have a knee-jerk reaction so that when they come out with a solution, we just follow them, thinking that, oh, you're gonna protect us. Oh, okay, good. I'll just do whatever you tell me to do, and then I'll feel better about myself. No, we need to think logically about this and take in the information that's coming in with a grain of salt, and kind of do our own research as much as we can to see if these sources are credible, and run it through our own filter, and not trust the news as much. Don't trust the news so much. Kind of just take it in, like, get your information, but think about it a little bit. Don't let it determine your emotions or your feelings of what you think should or should not be happening, right? Kind of, I think it's smart if we just kind of sit back and let's see what happens, right? So I'm going to leave you guys with this important takeaway, okay? And that'll be the end for this video. All right, so info's coming in, but we need to be on a swivel from possible propaganda that could try to get more people involved that needs to be. If Ukraine is under attack, and they are, right, we can see that, they need to fight for their future, and they need to fight for their freedom. But more importantly, they need to learn from their mistakes by building a strong country free of corruption and focus on its citizens' natural rights, right? They need to learn from this. This can't just be something that happens and it's like, oh, let's just chalk that up as a win, and we go on business as usual. They actually need to learn from this for there to be a good, for this to be have been worth something, right? But on the flip side, Russia should do what it feels like it needs to do, right? I don't know what's going on in Russia's head. I don't know what the actual geopolitical stance is, what the geopolitical situation is between Russia and Ukraine. I don't know what's going on, right? I'm an idiot. That's why I have this Slamfire show that I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That's why we call it Slamfire. I just spat out a bunch of shots, and whatever hits, right? Russia needs to do what it feels like it needs to. But when or if they lose, when or if they take that L, they need to take it, and they need to respect the code. That code of the warrior, that you lost, you take your L and you move on, right? To the victor goes the spoils. They need to move on as a defeated, and that's it. Russian citizens also, they should be taking note of this. They should be writing down in their little journals and their diaries or whatever, and taking note of what's going on right now. Maybe it's time for them to start thinking about them making their own rules and not their government, right? Something for them to think about. There's so much to learn from this conflict with the little time that it's actually been going on. But it very much is a serious deal. I mean, I want to say it's all out war. It's maybe not all out war, or full scale war, but it is definitely war going on right now. And I don't think we need to be jumping in with the info that we're getting right now, especially with the current administration that's in place. Okay. I'm sorry I left this on for you guys. I didn't realize it. But either way, guys, I just want to leave you guys with that, a short one today. Again, I don't want to give you guys too much info, and I don't want to get anybody scared with any information, because that was kind of bothering me with some of the podcasts and things that I was listening to earlier with like Tim Pool, and they're bringing up all these articles about nuclear war and threats of nuclear attack and like all this stuff. And it's like, dude, like, you're kind of fear mongering at this point. I kind of want to lean on the side of what what was that guy that almost got into a fight with him? Rude guy, or mean guy, or whatever. I forgot the name of that guy that almost got into a fight with him. That he does like a lot of fear mongering, and he kind of does. He's almost putting on like a little show, and it's not productive. All you're doing is you're getting people scared over nothing, because he Tim Pool will say something, and it's not just him. There's other people that they'll say something, and then at the end of the day, they'll be like, oh, well, I'm going to go get ice cream later. I'm going to go do that, go about my normal life. Oh, and and it's funny too, because they'll be doing this serious video, and they'll be talking about an article that they read about possible all-out war, like seriously all-out war going on, like World War III happening, being started with nuclear weapons and like pretty much the end of the world scenarios. And then like 5-10 seconds later, they put in a plug for an advertisement. Oh, get this collagen powder. Get this collagen powder that it helps your bones. What? You're talking about nuclear war and like the end of the world, and you're over here trying to sell me like bone powder and bone juice or whatever, and you have the quartering trying to sell like knives from Japan that can cut quarters or something like that. I don't know what, like, it's so ridiculous, and that's what kind of prompted me to frame this video the way that I did. It's just, keep your head on a swivel and pay attention to the information that you're getting. Don't trust so much what's going on, and just leave it at that. right? Because it serves no purpose to get everybody riled up over something that we don't even know, right? We don't have the full context of what's going on. We don't really know. Russia will say why it's doing it, but we don't really know why they're doing it, right? Ukraine will say why they're defending themselves, but we don't really know why they're defending themselves, right? Because we don't know that situation, that geopolitical situation going on between Russia and Ukraine. We have an idea, but we really don't know. That's why it's important right now just to play defense and watch this as it unfolds. You know, we play defense, we stick to our side of the fence, and if there is an attack, if there is a threat, we're gonna, people are gonna respond naturally. Let it happen naturally. All right. So I'll leave you guys with that. Thanks for watching. Check us out on slamfiremedia.com. We have links to BitChute, YouTube, and our Rumble videos. And be sure to follow us on Gab at Slamfire Media. Thanks for tuning in. Take it easy.